let's paint a picture that the takeover happens. I think
Yeah.
otherwise there's too many scenarios. The takeover happens, but either Sir Jim or the Qataris. Is Harry Kane a player that you believe Man United are going to sue heavily this summer?
100%, yeah. Yeah. I mean, what they don't want to do is have a long, drawn-out thing, a bit like the Frankie de Jong last summer, and also a bit like Spurs can be like. If you remember, he nearly went to City two summers ago, Harry Kane. But yeah, they're definitely after him. Ten Hag likes him, loves him. And why would you not? Because this is a guy who, look at his numbers this season. I think he's 26 goals, in a team that's basically sort of been up and down. Conte's left. They couldn't buy a win under the caretaker. Ryan Mason's managed to get him a win, and he's the England captain. He's also a very good footballer as well as finisher. But what they need is a top class striker who doesn't get injured and bangs them in, because United haven't really had that since Van Persie, right? Again, part of the dysfunctional management, and I'm talking about from the Glazers here, structurally, of the club and the team. So yeah, I think they are 100% after him. I think he's got a year left on his contract, hasn't he? So this is the interesting thing here. I think he probably wants to leave as well. Yes. And then you start to think, well, where's he going to go? If he doesn't go to United, where would he go? Would it be Bayern Munich? I think they probably do want a striker. But you understand what I mean? There isn't a lot of options. Sorry, a lot of buyers who meet the sort of requirements of, yes, they have the money, stroke, he would want to go there. I'm not saying, it's a shoe-in for United, because it won't be, because of the sort of whole Levy Spurs thing. But, if you're Harry Kane, right, you are now Tottenham's record goal scorer, right? That can never be taken away from you. Listen, I'm not a Spurs fan, and Spurs fans will have different opinions, but you can't, if you've got half a sort of balanced look at it, you can't really say he hasn't given you great service. He's still doing it this season, banging in the goals, and he's 29, 30, he might even be 30, but he's certainly about to hit 30. It's now or never for him. So it's going to be interesting. Now, the price is, I don't know, you tell me, 100, 120. And then you start to say, well, if they get him, or if his priority, which it is, this is Ten Hag, is a centre forward, they don't come cheap, as we're saying. What money is left for the rest of the team? Because I think the rest of the team, you're probably going to see Maguire leave. I think he wants another central midfielder as well. Maybe a De Jong, a sort of playmaking, someone to accentuate what he has there with Casemiro. Bruno Fernandes can play there, but he's more of a sort of attacking sort of number 10 player, isn't he? Yeah, and this is why it also knocks onto De Gea, why he can't really get rid of De Gea at the moment, because I'm not too sure he's 100% a massive. I think he admires him, but he's a great shot stopper. But we can all see he's got mistaken. He's not very good aerially. Blah 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 blah. But what I'm trying to say is he's only got a certain amount of money for a certain amount of positions. I think you probably see three. You'll see three signings this summer of kind of first team squad level. One will be elite. One will be let's see what we can get in central midfield, and then centre back possibly.
Yeah, the centre back's an interesting one, because Varane, there are reports that he's on his way back. Excuse me, and should make the FA Cup final, if not sooner, because we know he's back at Carrington, because some sort of footage has come out in the last few days. But he can't play 2 games a week. And if Man United make the Champions League, there needs to be a big improvement in terms of being able to play twice a week. And we're linked to the likes of Kim Min-jae. I know Gahey of Crystal Palace has been linked to Man United in the last few days. So that would be an interesting one. Harry Kane or a striker is a must. And I know a lot of United fans we have to get a goalkeeper. And I do understand that we do have to get a goalkeeper. But De Gea, I think he's, as you say, seen as he can do a job. It's about the money that's available. And I think that if this takeover happens and the debt is cleared and the new owners inject, and one thing that I've seen, a lot of people have spoken about, even with new owners, the budget's still low. Where I disagree from a financial point of view is that Man United have not had a single penny injected to the club's transfer capital by any owner at any point. And they're allowed to inject £100 million of their own money every 3 years. So the new guy comes in and wipes the debt. That's £60 million a year back in our coffers. If they inject £100 million, that's another 100 million. So suddenly you've got £160 million extra on top of the 150, 200 budget that already remains. That is when you look at the situation and say, well, now you can go out and maybe sign Onana, go out and get Costa, Kim Min-jae at the back, Harry Kane, and then look at that midfield area and say, how do we improve that significantly? Because I think if Man United were able to buy a very good to elite core this summer, it could be a very exciting year for Man United next year. I think you would see Ten Hag's style of football come alive a lot more, especially away from home. To play out from the back away from home with the intensity of the away crowd against you, with teams pressing you hard, you need defenders and a goalkeeper that have the confidence to do that. And De Gea just isn't that guy. We're just not going to be able to play away from home, especially Ten Hag's brand of football with De Gea in goal. So it becomes such a toss-up. And that's what you said earlier, right at the top of the show. The problem with the way we've run the club, because of the failed projects before this, there just isn't quite enough budget to give the manager what he needs quick enough. That's why it's 2 or 3 summers. Because we know if this was Man City, they'd be getting, no matter what else they needed, they'd be getting a new goalkeeper. That would 110% be happening. They wouldn't make Pep wait another year to get it done. I do think that's significant.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is why it's so important, the off-field management. And Guardiola mentions this a lot. And actually, it was interesting. In Ten Hag's last press conference, I sort of asked him, look, I know you have director of football here and you see them at other big clubs, but actually, essentially, should the manager be the de facto, which means, obviously everything apart from officially the director of football as well, because he lives or dies by results. And he sort of took that point, but he also said, do not write off how important Begiristain is, for example, at City, because, the manager will come and go at a club, but what is remaining? The club, obviously, and who runs the sort of ethos, the philosophy, the football structure of the club? It's a director of football, and who has put that structure in place? The ownership, right? Obviously, because they, in the end, make all the executive decisions, all the the decisions. And so, you're right about Guardiola. Tried Bravo, didn't he? That first season because he didn't fancy Joe out. That didn't work. Sadly for Bravo, and he got rid of him. And Ederson came in just like that. They didn't say to him, well, we've only got 50 million left for a keeper because you did Bravo. You know what I mean? They just, because of the management at the club is there. Now, obviously, Guardiola, to keep on using that example, can't keep on making mistakes, but he's so good that, he's not going to continue to do that.
No, absolutely. And we saw this game. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that your point there about playing out from the back away from home was really shown up that game at Sevilla, right? Now, you had a sort of unfortunate perfect storm of you had De Gea try to do it with Harry Maguire. I think it was the opening goal, yeah. There's a pincer movement. I can't remember who scored for them, but suddenly there's 3 players around Maguire. He flaps and they score, and it's kind of end of tie, isn't it? And that was like, if you wanted to give it an absolute prime example of the issues they have, the keeper who he maybe shouldn't have passed to Maguire. I know Maguire called for it, but De Gea maybe should have had it in him to think, actually, I'm going to put him in trouble here. I'll just boot it up. So you've got that mistake there. But you've got Maguire, the centre-back, who actually is supposed to be half decent at the back, was going through, sort of technically, but it's going through such a bad patch confidence. So this is all...
No, it all adds up. And I was watching the semi-final last night, and there was a moment where AC Milan were pressing Inter, they're under a bit of pressure, and Onana hits a kind of... it was like a half volley inside of his right boot, lobs it over the press, and it goes out to the right-hand side, well controlled by Inter, and they start to build an attack from there. That pass is an impossibility that David De Gea pulls that off. And that's the difference between having an Onana, a Costa, an Ederson, and Alisson in goal. De Gea there has to kick that out, and Man United lose possession, where with these elite goalkeepers now, you're able to maintain it an extra 5, 10, 15 times per game. And those extra 10, 15 times per game that you're able to build from the back is where you create those additional chances to score and win games. And I love what De Gea has done for Man United. I think that in our real rough periods post-Fergie, he stopped us from dropping to mid-table with the amount of points he saved us in games.
That's fair comment, yes.
But the sentiment can't remain. The club has to move on and improve that area if we want to compete with the current best teams in the world. So I think it has to be done. And as your point alludes to, raising money in the summer will be very, very important as well. With, you mentioned Maguire leaving and others, what money can be raised. As you say, Harry Kane is I think, or a player like him is an absolute must. There is another story that's been circulating the last couple of days from the Independent that United may be looking at Benfica's Ramos, but also maybe looking to go in and compete with Arsenal for Declan Rice. Do you see Rice being a big target for Man United?
Yeah, again, 100%. No, I think how this is going to work is if it looks like Kane is an impossibility, or we're not going to go all the way through the summer because that's a waste of time, then that's when Rice will take over as the number one target with regards to the money we're going to spend. I mean, Ramos, the player, the Portuguese player. My issue with that is Ten Hag can't afford to take a gamble, so he might be, yes, we're going to go for Rice as the number one. and then that means that it's going to reduce the money for a sort of. And listen, I know he's a Portugal international, but he's not a Premier League established, kind of world beater kind of thing. So I think Rice is, I think they need free. They need a massive upgrade in three positions. This is United, obviously. It's centre forward, it's central midfield, and what I mean is he's a playmaker because obviously Casemiro is good enough in his role, and a goalkeeper. So I think the goalkeeper, not this summer, and then really is. If we can't get the centre forward, then he'll go to midfield. Now, Declan Rice, would he go to United? I mean, it is still Manchester, because you look at from his point of view, probably looking at Arsenal and United, thinking, well, it's going to be Arsenal next season with more chance of winning the title if they don't quite do it this year. But then it is Manchester United, and they do pay more, and there is that lure of look. Ten Hag can now say to players like Rice and Kane, actually, he doesn't actually have to say it, but they will be thinking, wait a minute, this guy's coming here. He's won the Carabao Cup, Champions League qualification if they get it. I mean, it's a big if, but I think they will in the end. He knows what he's doing. Actually, you, Declan Rice, and you, Harry Kane, can be part of the first team to win the title, since Ferguson, May 2030. You know what I mean? So there is a selling point there. Arsenal's a magnificent club, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite Manchester United, in my humble opinion, world status, still the record title holders, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I think Rice is up there. As I'm sure Terry, and probably a lot of people watching it, how these clubs work is they'll have a list, for each position. It'll be like number 1, number 2, number 3, and then it'll obviously go down. And to a certain extent, we can all guess who are on these lists, because we can all see who the best players are in each position. And so I think the Rice thing, I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just an opinion, this is not based on any factual report, I wouldn't be surprised if it came to a scenario where Rice has to choose between United, wants to choose between United and Arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised if he chooses United because there is that sort of romance about it. I might be completely wrong. I know he was at Chelsea when he was a kid. Would that affect his choice of Arsenal? I'm not too sure, but I just think there's something about United still, an X factor, especially with Ten Hag there, that might just get, the club over the line. But, he'll probably sign for Arsenal tomorrow after I've said that.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I think Arsenal are leading the race. When you read all the reports, when you sort of look and respect the kind of the journalists that are out there, everything that's going on, it feels very much to me like Arsenal are leading that race. But as you say, this is still Manchester United, and I think if the Glazers stay, or there is still a bad or problematic feeling around the football club, there's no. I just don't think Man United get him out of London because I think he wants to primarily stay. But if, for instance, we get our wish, and I get my wish as a United fan, and the Qataris come in, debt's cleared. I'm just going to make some names up here. Paul Mitchell's appointed as the director of football. A few legends. I mean, I'm actually up for some legends coming back to help run the club. And I think sometimes some people get annoyed by that. For me, I look at all the best clubs around the world. Nearly all of them have ex-legends that are on their board that help running the football club. So for me, it's not weird that Man United would look to do that to a degree. You got to get the balance right. But you then go to Declan Rice and you say, look, we've got all this money. We've got a very good team, a very good unit already. But we want to go from being a good to a very good to being a world-class team. We want to bring you in. We're bringing a world-class striker. We're bringing in a world-class goalkeeper. And this is the vision and the plan. I think you can sell Manchester United to him. It's still hard to get him away from Arsenal and maybe Chelsea, who are seen as a preferred two. But I think for anyone to deny that Man United have the ability to take him away with new ownership, I think it's a bit mad. But my personal feeling is I think he'll go Arsenal. I think we might go back in for Frankie de Jong. I think that's where Ten Hag might push.
Yeah, I mean, the last I heard on this is that he's still keen on Frankie de Jong, but it was whether Frankie de Jong is keen on going to United. And I don't follow it too much, but I think he's back in the team, isn't he, at Barcelona? And they're going to win La Liga, etc., etc. So, that has gone a little bit quiet. I think the difference, if you compare that to the Kane deals, I think Kane probably wants to go to United. Yeah, and obviously, if the player doesn't want, you need that, obviously. You need a player to want to go somewhere. And that's why Rice is interesting, because I hear what you're saying, but I just wonder, who knows it in sort of transfer. But, to get back to the point, the fundamental point, the priorities are number 9. I was only sort of saying Rice would become a priority if Kane and another centre forward was not possible, then they might sort of shift the focus.
I understand.
Just one thing to throw in there, which is interesting, and I have no information on this. they do have a very good centre forward at United, obviously, but whether he'll still be there after this summer, we don't know. It's Mason Greenwood, and that's just something just to consider because that has not yet been decided. But he would obviously, just from a total football point of view, forget about the moral stuff. I'm not going into that here and there. It's not an opinion on that. But in terms of solving a centre forward problem, he would probably do it. I mean, obviously, we don't know Ten Hag's thoughts on whether he thinks Greenwood's good enough, but I think he probably does think that because I think Greenwood's a very good player. We've never really seen the best of him. But anyway, that's just a little thing to throw in there. I'm not throwing it in there to say that I know that he's going to stay or I don't. I just don't know that. But it's just, you never know in football. And I think the club is wrestling with this issue. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're wrestling with it because what it is it's a 70. Before all this happened, you're looking at a player. If you were going to buy him, you were going to be parting with 70 to 80 million pound. It's a huge financial hole for the football club to have to fix. I get the feeling he'll go. I just a gut feeling, and that's my personal choice. I just sorry, but then you also look at the fact that Juve are looking at him, and you think Juve are like such a massive, highly reputable club. If they're looking at doing it, and maybe other clubs of that level, there will be a part of Man United that will think, well, if they're doing it, and that's going to be accepted, why should we not? And I'm separating myself from that decision because I know what I want as a Man United fan. But yeah, that'll be a real interesting one to see. But personally, I think he's finished at the club. But we will see what.